As I'm making preparations to show how the hero's journey plays out inside the psyche and do the transitions there, I realize that since there are multiple steps along the way, that as I take us through, or as I talk us through playing it out in the psyche, that it might be time consuming along the way to talk about each step. And what I decided to do then was to just kind of make some short videos talking about individual steps that we're going to be taking on this inward path. The hero's journey itself is something that we're not exactly going to be taking. If you've been following along, you realize I've taken that hero's journey and found a way to play it out inside the psyche. And actually the 12 steps are not all there. There's fewer steps when you turn it inside. The 12 steps outside that were identified by Joseph Campbell were there to carry big adventures, journeys, religions, things like that. But when you play it out in the psyche, there's fewer component parts. They're not easy, but they are a little more specific and we can address them. My name is Dan Paulson, and in this video, what I'm going to do is talk about the call to adventure, the selection process. How do you know that you've been selected, and how does that even work? Who selects you? The call to adventure, we can look at that in a number of stories. And since I'm going to be going for Jason and the Argonauts, the Golden Fleece, as the first one, I'll stick with that one. And I've used this example before, but right in the beginning of that story, Jason was hidden away to prevent the conquering king, from killing him, the king who's coming over to take over the land that belonged to Jason's father. And yeah, Jason had to get hidden away. We see that kind of work in religious material as well. For example, Moses was hidden in the river to protect him from the Egyptians, and Jesus' family fled with him to escape King Herod. And ironically, they went back to Egypt. But in the beginning of all of these stories, we see that somehow there is something that this person goes through, that they're somehow isolated out from being taken away. At any rate, that's a component part of the story, and each of those people are then going to go on adventures or, we'll get to that. Each one of them is being selected to go and have some kind of a purpose in life that is special. And at least that's the way it plays out in the physical world, in the religions, in the myth itself. So what does this calling actually look like for us? How do we fit into this? And, most people treat those stories as adventures or myths. And, maybe the call to adventure for somebody might mean you've gone off to get something to bring back to your village that helps all of the people. Or, you go help somebody have clean water somewhere in a distant place. Or in some way, shape, or form, you are doing something that is a grander scale. But we're not going to be Thor and any Greek gods or Hercules or anything like that. We're playing this out in our psyche. So we're going to really nail that down into something specific. The outward-looking areas always have supernatural elements. I know there's a lot of theistic people that have answered a call, or they say they have answered a call. And I step back and I look at that, and I look around the world, and everybody that's doing what they want to do answered a call. Somebody might have wanted to been a pilot, and they got their license and they answered a call. The fact that you are stepping into a realm of guiding people's souls is a little bit different. And I don't have a lot of trust in that. I have no trust in it, actually. And this is the reason why. They may very well conduct themselves in a way that I think is just, that's exactly how people should be treated. We know, though, that from looking at religion, that there is variation in there. The standards and the values are quite variable. And that's where I struggle with looking at that, because they're all using supernatural explanations to come up with their ideas on how to guide people's souls. And so their calling is what? Their calling is a supernatural calling to lead people doing whatever they're doing. And that's not this calling. This is a different calling. This is, how do you get called? How do you know you're going to do this? And that's what it comes down to. The supernatural goes away. I think the easiest way I can do this is to kind of talk about my past a little bit. Apologies to anybody who's watched enough to realize where I'm coming from already, but this fits here and it helps with the story. So I, in a nutshell, came from a Christian home, but it was very abusive. There was, as an infant, I was burned with cigarettes and cut with knives by my father. My brother and I were just, little slices on top of us, according to my mom, to take her tip money. He was pretty abusive. She got away from that, but she became abusive. She became, she would whip us out of control, scream and yell, degrade, belittle, demean, things that some people grow up with. You're stupid, you're damn dumb, you'll never amount to anything. All of those things that you're being wired with, plus whippings, belts. Little kids are to be seen and not heard. We were very obedient kids in the presence of people. When you see little boys sitting there quietly, question that. At any rate, because of the situation, my brother Larry, older than me by 1.5 years, hung himself at the age of 11. I was 9. I found him in the woods in a tree. I cut him down. The abuses kept going on. I never understood anything. I couldn't figure out anything. I didn't know why Larry died. None of those things were told to me. Eventually, I'm cutting and doing, self-damaging behavior and a runaway, eating out of garbage cans, at some point taken off the streets and being molested. Life was not starting out okay. I had some good qualities. I had some bad qualities. I would do good things. I would turn around and do bad things. There was this blend going on, and I didn't have control of it. And at some point, you look back on it and go, yeah, that's where you came from. Those were the tools you had. That's the way your brain got wired. You're acting out because you don't know anything different. And you're going to have to figure it out on your own, because what you were given is not the tools to have a successful life. At some point, this continues on, and I'm in my 30s at some point, and I've got a good job, doing well, and I'm drinking myself to sleep every night and living alone. And me and some buddies close a bar down one night. I get arrested for DUI, and as the arresting officer is closing the cell, he says, "I need your belt and your bootlaces so you don't hang yourself." And I'd never dealt with my brother's death, and at that moment, things just crumbled around me. I'd done good, I had done bad. I couldn't get out of the cyclical succeed, fail, each time failing harder. And somehow at that point, because of the DUI, I quit drinking. I had to go on a diversion program, and I was being monitored, and it was an incredibly good time for me, because that's exactly what needed to happen, because I had to start figuring out something. I still couldn't find any help. I couldn't find answers. But at this point in time, there was something that happened to me. I sobered up enough to realize that I was seeing cycles, that I was looking at my life, and no matter where I went, no matter where I moved, things were great. Oh, yay, new start, fresh start. In a period of time, the old life is back. I don't have things resolved. I am still who I am. Even though I want to be something different, I am still who I am. And I realize at this moment that my life failures were something that I was dragging with me, that it wasn't about the world, it was about me. That is when I got called. You call yourself. Nothing supernatural. It's when you say, I'm going to do something different. Now, I don't know if it has to work that way for everybody. There are people who probably get to this point that might already be living life sentences. There are people listening that might say, well, I didn't go through all that, but I can go back and resolve something. There's a lot of variation. The calling really comes down to you saying, I'm done. I'm going to look at myself. I got to turn inward. That's the calling right there. Anyway, I don't know if I have any notes here. The next thing that comes after the calling, the next step, and I'll do a separate video on this, is supernatural training in the hero's journey. That's the next thing that happens. Is before going on this journey, you need tools. You're going into a magical place. What do you do when you get there? That'll be the next video. Anyway, well, hope this was fun. And yeah, I'll do one now on the supernatural tools. And that'll be fun. Then as we get into the hero's journey, I can reference these, and we can kind of move along that a little bit quicker as we're playing it out in the psyche. All right. Thanks for your time. Love one another, and I'll see you in the next video.